All right, you just heard Congressman Tim Walberg a few moments ago make reference to Randi Weingarten, who is the head of one of the nation's largest teachers union. Well, Weingarten was just recently named to an advisory council for the Department of Homeland Security. And you may remember this is the same person and the American Federation of Teachers who influenced the CDC on school closures during the COVID pandemic. And of course, that created all sorts of problems. Weingarten also defended the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, as it recently placed parent groups into their hate map. Now, this is the very hate map, and I know you've heard us talk about this before, but this hate map is dangerous. It's the very thing that inspired a domestic terrorist to attempt a mass shooting here at the Family Research Council in the D.C. headquarters. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Meg Kilgannon, a senior fellow for education studies here at the Family Research Council. Meg, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to have you.
It's great to see you, Jody.
Well, thank you so much. Let's begin. Some people may not be familiar with the DHS Academic Council and why Randi Weingarten is on this. But what is this council, and what's it all about?
Well, DHS stands for the Department of Homeland Security, and it was originally started in the aftermath of 9/11 as part of the Patriot Act and that effort to keep America safe. And the fact that we have this going on at that agency right now, I think is incredibly disturbing. And part of this segment of the department is going to be adjudicating, information, not just what's given to our children, but what there'll be, this classification of disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. I think a lot of parents have been making those kinds of judgments about the curriculum their children are getting, and we've been put on hate lists for it. But now we see that the government is going to set up its own adjudication system. And, I think that there'll be more political fallout to follow.
Yeah, it's another frightful step in the wrong direction that this administration continues to go against the liberties and freedoms of the American people, and in this case, parents. Yes. To be concerned about their own children. And here's Randi Weingarten, who was so involved in school closures, an absolute failure, I think fair to say, in so many ways, and now being placed in this position. That in itself is a dangerous red flag that goes up with me. Don't you think this is just another example of I don't know, a cozy relationship, you might put it that way, between the Biden administration and the American Federation of Teachers?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, Dr. Jill Biden is herself a teacher, right? And so that relationship is quite cozy. And the American Federation of Teachers is a union. It is, I believe, AFL-CIO affiliated. It is absolutely the arms and legs, hands and feet of the Democrat Party, and the Bidens know that, and Democrats understand this. And it's no coincidence that we have polling places in public schools. It's not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just makes it very convenient for people who want to be in those situations to be a part of the process in a very effective way. And teachers unions certainly have been an absolutely effective advocate for the Democratic Party for many, many years.
Yeah, in so many ways, financially and otherwise. But that's a great point and a word picture, if you will, the way you describe that. Another thing that concerns me, and we mentioned it briefly, but I'd like to get your thoughts on this, and Weingarten came to the defense of the SPLC and their labeling of parents as part of this hate group list that they have. How in the world can this be? The SPLC placing parents who are concerned about their children on a hate list. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's really, they become more and more extreme as the years pass. And for some reason, they seem to gain credibility in the Democratic Party the more extreme the SPLC becomes. I mean, they started out with this hate list being for essentially neo-Nazi, white supremacist, Aryan nation type groups, which we can all agree are founded on an ideology of hate. And then they started putting groups like Family Research Council on the list because we were a quote unquote LGBT hate group, right? And so now immediately conflating those two things as the same is an incredible insult to us, a terrible besmirching of our good name, right? And the people who support our organization by default. And so the fact that they've expanded this list now to include parents, we at the Family Research Council, we know we're working in Washington, D.C. We're not really, civilians, so to speak. We know we're in a political fight. We know if we want to have a friend, we should get a dog, right? We expect to be called names to some degree, right? The hate list is a extreme weaponization of that, but we know what we're signing up for. To put Moms for Liberty on this list and to put the parents groups on this list that are simply trying to help parents mobilize against forces like the ATF who are in the schools dictating what happens to their children every day is just beyond arrogant at best. I mean, it is just a hateful weaponization of what is every parent's instinct to protect their children. To classify that impulse as hate is just disgusting. And
Absolutely.
For her to defend that is beyond the pale. But her job is to defend the teachers' unions, defend the adults, right? And so it's up to parents to defend the children.
Absolutely. And the SPLC, we all know, has pushed all sorts of horrible ideologies within the school. And yet this week, and we've only got about 30 seconds, the nation's report card came out, which was horrifying. In 15 seconds, what did that scorecard say?
The lowest scores on record in some cases. Everything is in decline. And part of the problem is that people are more focused on ideology. And groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center have been pumping that ideology into the classroom for years. We wrote a paper on it. It's at our website. I'm sure it's at tonyperkins.com as a resource. But this is exactly the problem with America's public schools and why we really need parents to engage and get involved in the system. Your tax dollars are paying for it.
We're going to have to wrap it up there. Meg Kilgannon, thank you so much for joining us.